Who stands out in the next wave of newcomers to arrive at Nebraska? That's next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, welcome to the show. It's Wednesday. We got rainstorms going through the area and severe thunderstorms going through the area. A sure sign that that summer is very, very close. Still 10 days away from the summer session at Nebraska, and so they had some early enrollees that were on campus this spring, including the quarterback. The late arriving half of the Nebraska recruiting class is set to check in a week from Sunday. That's June 1st. But they've already started to move in. So 16 early arrivals were here in the spring. Obviously, Riola, Ja'Cory Barney, we saw in the spring game, Vincent Shavers, who was talked about quite a bit, and we've talked about on this podcast. But the rest of them are in the process of moving in now. Are there a couple people in that group, the second group, that have a chance to get on the field for Nebraska this year and make an impact? Mitch, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Carter Nelson is the obvious one. So much like and we'll give Carter his due. We'll talk about him in this segment, but I think much like we do with Dylan Raiola when we ask questions about like impact freshman, most important player on the team, and we just exclude Dylan Raiola from the conversation, we're going to exclude Carter Nelson from the answer of who are the freshmen that are most exciting among the summer arrivals, because it's Carter Nelson, and that's the position that he's put himself in as a high 4-star tight end out of Ainsworth, Nebraska. There's so much intrigue around him. So first, let's discuss Carter Nelson, and I'm curious what you think as an 8-man player in high school who is arriving at Nebraska in June and has 2 months to learn things before it gets difficult in August for all freshmen. What would you say are his chances to be an impact player for Nebraska in 2024?
Well, I think he has a couple things going for him. I think first and foremost, first and
He's
foremost,
6'5", 240 pounds.
that's the part that's first and foremost, probably the athleticism piece of it. I think second of all, there's the versatility piece where you could do different things with him. You could put him at time. I mean, he almost kind of, is Heinrich Harburg-ish in a way, not with the quarterback-centric style, but just with the ability to kind of put him everywhere and be an athlete and
I know what you mean.
And move around a little bit. So I think that works for him if Nebraska needs that type of player this year. I have always leaned toward with Carter. So I think you and I maybe think differently about him just as far as his ability to play early. I feel like it's going to take a second for him to be able to really make an impact for Nebraska. And I don't know what that means, but we'll see how he adjusts when he gets on campus. I was thinking back to our friends from 24/7 Sports have us do our Super Six for recruits coming in. I think if I remember right, you went a little transfer heavy with those guys just because that's, they'll make impacts. I didn't have Carter on my top 5. Like I think that is our top 6, I guess. I think it's a tough transition. And so I would think I was one of the few that was in that camp, or maybe one of the only ones that was in that camp. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with him. I think he's going to be a good player, but maybe it just takes some time.
We've had Mike Schaefer on our show, so we can make fun of him. He was our first guest, but every year when he gets his submissions for the Super Six, it's always, there's no criteria with this. You can pick whatever you want for the for your Super Six, and it's like it could be like who's going to eat the most at the training table. So I'm not ever sure. I think most people look at it like who's going to make the biggest impact right away, but it could also be like who's going to make the biggest impact over 4 years. So sometimes my selections might be like way out there because I'm looking at it like a lot different than others. I don't remember. I'm sure I had Carter in my
I have it
six.
if you want me to
Yeah.
read it back to you.
Yeah,
So
tell me who are my six?
You had Jamal Banks, Micah Mazuka, Stephon Thompson, Dylan Raiola, Carter Nelson, and Bly Hill. I mean, those guys will all play.
Yeah, I'm gonna give myself some credit for Bly Hill because we weren't looking at Bly Hill back in January.
Yeah, that's a good one.
A guy, but and then he goes down with an injury in the spring game after earning a starting spot. Stephon Thompson's probably the one from that group that I might reevaluate if I was looking at it today. And I would probably want to put Ja'Cory Barney or Shavers in there too. But hey, that's what 5 months of watching these guys or hearing about them will do. But
so that's my point of pride right now.
What are you?
I had Ja'Cory Barney at 2, right behind Dylan Raiola, and what somebody told me, one of the 24/7 guys told me that, or no, I think it was Sam McEwen. He was like, "Hey, you had Ja'Cory Barney at number 2. I didn't even realize it after the spring game." I'm like, "Yeah, I better take a victory lap on that one." So there you go. I had Preston Talmua, Micah Mazuka, Jamal Banks, and Caleb Benning as my top 6.
So you've got some guys
appears on this list.
Yeah, you've got some guys in the summer arrivals that you really have some people to choose from. So the other thing that I've often done with this list is I go into it forgetting that we're supposed to rank them, and I'm just like picking 6 players. So I put Dylan Raiola like 4th. I'm like, no, I didn't have him 4th. That's just how I listed it. But I just wanted
got some flack for not putting him number 1, didn't you?
I think so, but it wasn't. If I had to rank him, I would put him 1. But I think I did, and I was like, oh, I'm just going by age or alphabetical here. Like I'm always. It's
That's
always
awesome.
Embarrassing when that thing comes out, and they're like, what is Mitch Sherman doing? But so all right, so I'm going to make a pick here, and this is not what I was thinking last night when I devised this discussion point. But I'm going to make a pick here other than Carter Nelson. And by the way, I think Carter Nelson is going to make an instant impact. I think he's going to play in 12 games or, more than 4. He's going, they're not going to redshirt him. I think they're going to find ways to just plug him into spots in the offense, whether it's taking the ball out of the I formation or like a direct snap or, he catches a swing pass, runs a reverse, whatever. I think he's that level of an athlete. And when you've recruited somebody who was coveted by Georgia and Notre Dame, and they were flying him in on private planes, or he was flying there on private planes, whatever, you find a way to get him on the field right away. And Nebraska, I think Nebraska will do that in this coming season. So that's my 2 cents on Carter. I am going to say this is like I just changed to this player among the summer enrollees. I'm going to say Eric Ingwerson. Which that's under the radar right there. The tight end, or maybe he's a defensive end, or maybe he's something else out of Papillion La Vista. He was committed to Pitt and then could not come to choose anything other than Nebraska. Big family in Nebraska, wants to be around them, and just has this love for the Huskers and hit it off with Matt Rhule and Ed Foley and the coaches here. So he's coming to Nebraska, and I think he's somebody who's just like dying to contribute to the program, and he'll find a way to get it done this year.
I like that pick. It's it's not a particularly deep position. There's some guys there that obviously you have.
I don't know where he's going to play.
Right, and you can kind of move them around from there. So that they have a lot of the guys who kind of fit that description in this class. I will go with these 2 guys based on positional, like where they're playing, the ability to kind of get on the field early, and just how the position is kind of open. How about a couple defensive backs? And one of which I had on my top 6 was Caleb Benning from Westside, and then Donovan Jones from North, a couple Omaha guys who, I mean, if you've seen Donovan play, he is really bouncy, athletic. Like, I think that they found a kind of steal in that type of guy. So defensive back and corner safety, it's a spot where it's kind of a big jumbled, mix back there outside of a couple stalwarts who have been around for a while. There might be an opportunity to play back there in that defensive backfield. And that's a position traditionally in just college football where you can't get on the field early, and the gap between, high school and college isn't that big compared to some others around the sport. So I'll highlight a couple defensive backs for my picks here.
That's good. I like that. And there's some uncertainty at DB because of the injury to Bly Hill. And Evan Cooper's a guy who's willing to make drastic moves with the depth chart. I mean, I don't think he's afraid to take a guy who goes in to August at number 3 or 4 and say, okay, now you're running with the ones. So there is a lot of stability there in the defensive backfield with, Isaac Gifford, with Tommy Hill, Marquise Buford has played a lot, but Sean Singleton coming back from injury was a guy who had a breakout season last year and is going to play a lot if he's healthy. But and then with Malcolm Hartzog, he's played a lot at corner and safety, and we'll see depending on how ready Bly Hill is to go when the season begins. If Hartzog's got to play. Where he has to play. You have Jeremiah Charles there too. You have Mario Buford, who was impressive as an early enrollee in the spring. But I do think there's an opportunity for some DBs in the fall.
All right, let's get a little exercise and something to watch out for over the summer workouts and into the fall. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and talk about Nebraska baseball's stinker downtown in Omaha last night. That is after this. But first, a reminder, please subscribe and follow on Twitter at LockedOnNEB or email us lockedonneb@gmail.com. We'll be back after this. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Welcome back. Rolling through the Locked On Nebraska podcast on a Wednesday in May here. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer. The rainy days around Omaha have hopefully passed. We got a ton of rain on Tuesday. It delayed the start of the Big Ten baseball tournament. Indiana took care of rival Purdue in that first game, and then Nebraska and Ohio State played a baseball game last night in downtown Omaha that most people around here would like to pretend did not happen. 7 innings. Ohio State scored 15 runs. Nebraska scored 2 runs. So that's a loss for the Huskers. Sends them into the losers bracket. They'll play Wednesday night. They're scheduled to against Purdue. And Nebraska needs to get out of its midweek mindset very fast, or the momentum train is going to be headed in the wrong direction heading into Memorial Day. I'm not going to overreact and say that they are playing for anything other than just their ability to move on in this tournament. I think they're in the NCAA regionals. They took care of that with the regular season, but man, that was brutal to watch. I turned it off after about 5 innings last night. Connor, what'd you think?
Super disappointing. I mean, it's just now we have to talk about like, it sucks when we get into stuff like this, because when you lose 15-2, it's not only like the quality of play or the quality of team that you have that gets brought into question. It gets, and we don't want to overact. It's like it's one baseball game, but also they've had
other ones like this though.
But they have, yeah, you're right. And but you have to have conversations about like, did you want to be there or were you trying and stuff like that? And I hate stuff like that. Like, why can't we just expect you to be like to play to a certain level all the time? Not that the results have to be great all the time. You could lose baseball games, but it was an uninspired effort last night. And now we're doing this retroactive thing where people are like, hey, you should have pitched your ace last night. Ohio State pitched their ace last night. And so there's that conversation too. I'm fine
with that.
I'm fine with Nebraska throwing off. I really am. Like, and I don't think it was throwing off for the sake of you thought you were going to beat Ohio State. I think it was another short day of rest for your pitcher of the year, Brett Sears, in the conference. So like, I'm okay with what they did, but it's a disappointing effort nonetheless. They had their ace. Ohio State had their ace, and he was really good. But it doesn't make Nebraska like it shouldn't add up to 15-2 through 7 innings at the end of the day.
No, Sears is used to pitching on Friday, and he threw on Thursday last week. So you don't put him on a Tuesday because that can mess up his routine, and you need him to be his best when you're presumably in a regional next Friday. But you got to get there first, and you got to be feeling good about yourself. And I listened after the game briefly to some of Nebraska's post game interview, and I heard Josh Caron, Nebraska's catcher, started out, and he hit a home run when it was 8-0, 9-0, something like that. And he said, clearly we didn't come out ready to play in any way, on the mound, at the plate. And it's like, well, why is that? This is I don't know if this is the first time we'd heard it. Also, that would be fine. But they've played, other games like this against Creighton and North Dakota State, and it didn't look ready to play to me when they had an opportunity to sweep Michigan State just on Saturday in the Big Ten regular season finale, with an opportunity at that moment to win a share of the league title. So there's something about, and this is a good team, and they have good players, and they've had moments where they've been very good and they've beaten good opponents. But they've also had these moments where they just kind of look like a team that just kind of throws it out there. And there's just not a lot of substance. And that was the group of Huskers we got last night. I don't know if that's maybe just like college athletes today, when you have 50 some games to play, or if they're saving their strength once they get down. There's not like a great explanation for it. And it doesn't reflect the personality at all of Will Bull, who was just a gamer when he played in every way, whether he was down 10 runs or up.
Yeah. I noticed, I don't know if this is anything. I want to get your thought on it before we move on to something else and finish this thing out. There was a clip, and I didn't see it live. They interviewed the Ohio State coach during the game, and they were up 15-1 at the time or something like that. And so it was a relaxed moment. Even though the coach's interviews during the game are a little weird sometimes, especially while the game is going on. But he goes like, he said something along the lines of, I went to the bathroom just now, and it was an Omaha bathroom. Like, there was like this deep appreciation of playing in that ballpark and being there and being in that setting. And I thought, I don't know, like the Nebraska's played a lot there over the years. They kind of got their teeth kicked in more so recently. Like maybe they don't approach it the same way as these other teams coming in for the Big Ten tournament, who think, hey, this is an opportunity to play on this field on TV and a chance to go to the NCAA tournament. Nebraska's, maybe got their bid locked up, and they've already played there twice this year. So, and however many times, more than a handful of times over the past 3 years, maybe you just lose a little bit of the edge. It's not an excuse, but maybe they lose a little bit of the edge compared to some other teams in the conference.
It's a good point. There's absolutely no doubt that Nebraska has a different feel about it when it walks into Charles Schwab Field than, say, Ohio State or Indiana or Michigan. Imagine being Michigan and saying, this is the site of the greatest moment, the greatest series of moments in the history of our program 5 years ago, when your predecessors, some of the guys you played with early in your career, were within one win of a national championship. This is hallowed ground for college baseball. This is where every college baseball player wants to be in 3 or 4 weeks from now. If you're Indiana, if you're playing for your tournament lives and saying, hey guys, you can dream a little bit. The journey starts here. What you want to do is you want to get back here next month. I don't think Nebraska goes into it like that. I'm sure you can say that stuff if you're Will Bolt, but what the guys remember is playing Creighton a month ago and losing, and the disappointment that they felt. So yeah, I'm with you. It's not an excuse. It's not a reason to play poorly in the Big Ten tournament, but I do think that there's the Nebraska has to get up a little bit more than what other teams do when they walk into downtown Omaha.
Hey, before we take a break, Mitch, and finish things out, if you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all the shouting, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the most important stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. That's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, let's get into some governance here, Mitch. Yeah, let's talk courts.
This is a deeper topic, a little more serious topic than
so we talked yesterday about the settlement, the expected settlement in the House versus NCAA case in the U.S. District Court. Yesterday afternoon, the ACC and the Big 12 voted no to accept the settlement, which would pay $1 billion in back pay to a huge group of former athletes. There was also they voted yes. They voted to accept they voted on the settlement.
They're on board with it.
Yes. And then the financial kind of structure of what the conferences would owe. I apologize. The financial structure of what the conferences would owe kind of came out yesterday, and the Big Ten owes the most under that under that format. So we discussed a small aspect of this, a possibility in the settlement that it could affect rosters across college football, including the walk-on programs, especially at a place like Nebraska where that's important. So we won't know the exact details of how it'll go for a long time and how this will all be sussed out, but we're headed in that direction as they figure it out. What do you think when this thing is all said and done? How do you think this affects Nebraska compared to its peers, or as you see it right now? Because we don't know what it's going to look like at the end. But as you see it right now, how do you think it affects Nebraska compared to its peers, whether it's in the conference or nationally?
Yeah, I mean, Big Ten teams are in a good spot because Big Ten teams make more money than anyone else in the sport, and the Power 5 schools are in a far better spot than schools from mid-major conferences. And even if you're a major conference in basketball, like if you're a Big East school in basketball, you don't stand to come out of this thing all that great financially. If you are playing football in the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, or the ACC, then you're the winner in how this thing is going to look most likely at the end. And so the Big Ten and the SEC, along with the NCAA Board of Governors, and even the Pac-12, because the Pac-12 is still the Pac-12 until July or August, they are expected to also approve the settlement by the end of this week. And then it's just a matter of determining what this thing looks like. As far as how it impacts Nebraska compared to, say, Texas or Stanford or Northwestern, Mississippi State, Nebraska's in a good spot because it doesn't take on a bunch of debt athletically. And this just becomes more and more about money and how you allocate money, because now you got to find $20 million to pay your players as part of revenue sharing. As long as something drastic doesn't happen, like cutting a football roster to 85 players, I think Nebraska's generally going to come out to be in the upper half of the Power 5 schools in what kind of an impact this thing has on it. But I mean, make no mistake, this is like one of the most important landscape changing events in the history of college sports. And I think at some point we've kind of grown accustomed to hearing about court cases that involve the NCAA and just think, oh, life's going on. Things are semi-normal. Like, tell me about this when it's over and, I'll catch up and try to figure out what it means. Like, this is massive. This is taking all of the last vestiges of amateurism out of college sports and saying you are now employees of the universities at which you play. And if you're at a Power 5 school, you stand to make a lot of money.
Well, it effectively kills the NCAA as well. Like, this is
kind of
something that, it definitely puts a way different spin on it. Yeah.
Right. It kills their ability to govern, their ability to like enforce rules. There really aren't rules anymore when it comes to, everything could change. Like, you could have unlimited coaches. You could have unlimited scholarships. The NCAA is going to be a much different looking entity when this thing settles.
I would say that Nebraska's approach to football and its desire to be, like, you go all the way back to the beginnings of this. Obviously you find Bob Devaney, who's a good coach, but after you start to have some success and people start to follow it and the state starts to support it, you come to the understanding, like, you have to continue to invest in Nebraska football in this state. And that is something that still holds true. And that is something that will serve it well through this time period. Like, Nebraska has been a place where they don't, if everybody else has 30 assistant coaches, then Nebraska's going to have 30 assistant coaches as well. Like, they will do everything it takes to make sure Nebraska football has the ability to stay competitive from a financial standpoint. You still have to get the right coaches and play football and, do that whole thing. But from a financial perspective and from a governance perspective, Nebraska is always going to invest in their program. That will serve them well throughout this period of time, because there's some schools around the country, and especially ones that aren't in this conference, in the Big Ten Conference, that they just won't. They'll bow out and they won't be able to participate in the revenue sharing pieces and things like that. It'll completely change for them. Nebraska will be in as long as it wants to be in.
Even if you are in a power conference, the schools in power conferences are certainly not all on even ground. Like, let's say you're Boston College or you're Wake Forest or you're Cal, like, even closer to home, like, look at a school like Iowa State. They're going to be looking at a different reality as far as like how they're able to compete. And because you have to be able to make make payroll, essentially. And that's what they're going to be looking at. It's like, hey, where's the money coming from for us to be able to pay the quarterback that we signed to a contract last year? Sounds like pro sports. Well, basically it is pro sports. So, there's some twists and turns ahead. And I was looking more into this on Tuesday, just because I want to educate myself about what's going on. I preached that a minute ago, like, hey, college sports fans, like, know what's happening here, because this is a whole different world. And one thing that stuck out to me that's interesting is this is in the courtroom of U.S. District Judge Claudia Wilkin. She is the same judge who ruled against the NCAA in the Alston case and in the O'Bannon case. So the lawsuit was filed knowing that they had a player friendly, an NCAA, a judge who was non-friendly to the NCAA. It's interesting that this specific judge, that she can have just that big of an impact over a few years on the way that college sports looks and is shaped. She's going to need to approve the settlement.
Right.
Right.
And that settlement probably is player friendly, right?
Yeah. Right. This thing, like, the conferences and the NCAA can agree on the settlement, and then it's going to go in front of the judge, and she's going to have to say, yeah, this is an okay settlement. So I would think if both sides are on board with it, that the judge would approve it, but you don't know. I don't know what other dynamics could be in play and like what curveballs potentially exist down the road, because I am a sports writer and not a legal scholar.
I mean, I would imagine both sides would have to put some stuff in there to, to kind of make it look pretty, right? Make it look good. So
Yeah.
man, I'm with you. I don't know where this is going to go either, or what this is, the exact details of what this looks like. But the main point is this: it's a complete game changer. I mean, it's going to be a complete game changer, and it's not that far away. I mean, we are not that far away from the sport. Complete. We thought conference realignment changed the sport, and it certainly did. I mean, this is a totally different deal.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Follow along with this story. It matters. Listen to the Locked On Network podcast. Others are digging into this thing. Check out our coverage on The Athletic. Nicole Auerbach and Justin Williams, two of my colleagues, had an explainer piece out early this week that went into what's all involved in this case and what the potential ramifications are. And that was really helpful for me to kind of catch up and figure out what I'm looking at here. So we'll continue to talk about this as it impacts Nebraska. Stick with us for the rest of this week, and then through Memorial Day into June, into the summer. Follow us on all the podcast listening platforms. Watch us on YouTube. As always, thanks for listening. We will be back on Thursday to talk some more Big Ten baseball, whatever's going on in football, some media availability in Lincoln with Nebraska's recruiting staff on Wednesday that we'll get into on the Thursday show. That is all for today. Want to tell you here at the end that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every league, college, and pro. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app.